Hello and welcome. So we're going to be talking about NFT trends, and here with me I have
Vanessa Grellet, Head of Portfolio Growth at Coinfund.
I'm Henry Wang. I'm a graduate student at UC Berkeley studying data science, and I'm a Hashmask MassDAO early member, and also,
Yep, and I'm Mitchell of Crypto Briefing. So to kick us off, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how we got here today with this NFT mania, and we're seeing a lot of interest in these assets that, say, 2 or 3 years ago, nobody was really looking at in a serious way. So first, what were kind of the prototypical and early projects that were driving this movement behind the ERC 721 standard and just non-fungible tokens in general? And then how did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, so early on, ERC 721 was out there without people realizing maybe the potential. Then the CryptoPunks sort of project came out. The team didn't get any money out of the launch of the CryptoPunks, and they were trading, early amongst sort of insiders who knew the team. And I think the pivotal moment, I don't know if you agree, was really the CryptoKitties. I remember I was working at Consensus at the time. For 2 weeks, none of our teams worked. We were all trading CryptoKitties. We, of course, we broke the Ethereum chain at the time, so it was interesting times. But everyone was so exciting, and I think that's important for the future, excited about the playfulness of CryptoKitties, and sort of, it was a little bit silly. We were trading cats and breeding cats, trying to find which feature was, unique, and then understanding the value of that, because people at the time already had made a little bit of money, of course, compared to now. The numbers were really small, but I think that was the exciting time. And then I remember we organized an ethereal conference, and we sold a CryptoKitty for 120K at the time on auction, and I was like, groundbreaking, exactly. And so that was just before crypto winter came in, so it was really at the height of the craziness. And I think a lot of projects at the time started to build. So John from Super Rare was already building his project. There was another project called Rare Arts, which was like really curating, artists and types of arts, etc. But it didn't mesh really well with sort of the open platforms like OpenSea, where everyone can sell things and buy things, and the market is created. So it's really exciting to see that all these open platforms are really the ones that won after crypto winter. And I think my view and like how we've seen this thing exploding is that we had the quarantine, people staying at home. We have, one generation that's digital only and understands the value of digital. We had a lot of teams working on these projects and these infrastructure, which really matured during crypto winter and continued to build. And so the confluence of all this, for some of us, was a surprise of, the explosion of NFTs, but it's actually, pretty logic that it came to be recently.
yeah, I definitely do agree as well. And I think adding on top of that, January was, I would say, when Hashmasks launched, and it really started the explosion of the NFT movement. I truly do believe that, not simply just because I'm top 10 holder, but I after seeing that, if you notice interviews with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, I don't know how many people here own a Bored Ape, or how many people by raising hands owns an NFT. Wow, the cameraman, I don't know if you could show the whole room. It's just every single person here. So you guys are all, first of all, gonna make it, right? We're all gonna make it, right? So congrats to every single one here. So that's really when I think it really took off, and I think it started getting really mainstream press. I think that, and what else happened? Celebrities started getting on, right? And that's when mainstream celebrities, you see Steph Curry, you see all these other celebrities getting NFTs, and that's when you really see the mass media covering it more. So I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I remember in 2017 when the first solution to getting getting art on the blockchain was just trying to take physical art and attempt to tokenize it. And I've seen many companies try and fail to do this. And eventually the solution people came to is, why do we need physical art? Let's just make our own art and put it on the blockchain. And that kind of turned into this broader movement. But we still have to ask, with these crazy prices like a CryptoPunk trading for millions, like $500 million, right? What is the underlying value? Like, why do people want these things in the first place? Or what compelled you? You're just like looking at these Hashmasks, these little pointers on a blockchain pointing to some art, and you're like, man, I want to own a silly amount of these.
Sure, that's a great question. So I bought my first NFTs back in January of this year. And so what happened was I was in the middle of my Chinese class, and somebody that I really trusted, Daniel Huang, who is he's head of protocol for Stakefish, someone I really trust. And he was like, this is a great project. You should probably pick up some of these. And I trust him. That's one thing I'm sure many of you guys have heard about NFTs because somebody you trust probably told you. I mean, sure, you don't just buy something without somebody probably referring or doing due diligence. And that was my due diligence, was my friend Daniel told me about it. So what happened was I connected my MetaMask. Did I say due diligence? Did I say something wrong? And English is my second language. And so what happened was I connected my MetaMask, and how many of you here know about gas wars, right? Or gas issues? Luckily, there was no gas wars. But the gas issue was, so I was in class and I clicked it and I tried to buy it, but then I did low gas. It wasn't going through.
This doesn't sound like you're learning Chinese.
Oh, yeah. He speaks Mandarin, by the way. His Mandarin is really good. And then the transaction wasn't going through, so they did another transaction, and next thing you know, all 12 transactions went through, and they were all for 10, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just buy? And I had really, really buyer's remorse, and I was telling all my friends, you guys want to buy these off of me for really cheap. And next thing you know, they took off.
So I think, when we look at NFTs, and we have a separate vehicle that invests in NFTs, we look at various factors. One is, the artist. Is there a story behind the NFT? Second is like the community. Does this NFT give you access to a specific community of friends, of like-minded people that want to achieve something? Does it give you access to other things? And then where it stands in sort of the NFT life, right? So CryptoPunks value accrue because of, the iconic level of what they represent, right?
Being first.
Right, being first. But also, I would say even the way they look and what they represent is really important in that vein. And then we also look at the number of NFTs that are issued, how they're trading, the floor price, and other events to see, what is going to be their value in the future. We don't have a crystal ball, but those are the things we look at. But I would say the community is something that comes on really strong. Like, we're invested in the nouns, NFTs, and what it represents is really powerful.
Yeah, so Vanessa, you were still director at Consensus when all of this stuff was exploding. So what was kind of the underlying thesis there that, these tokens just representing art, not backed by some sort of asset or even backed by some sort of blockchain? Why did people at Consensus believe that eventually that would have some sort of value?
Yeah, so it was interesting. At the time I was focusing on art and luxury goods. I had a lot of connectivity there, and we were speaking to some auction houses, and in the middle of crypto winter, and we were like, and I brought in Joe, and he was like, this is going to explode. You have to jump on the bandwagon. And they were looking at us like we were, not normal. And now they're one of the most active auction houses in the space. So sometimes it just takes time for people to understand the value. We saw it immediately, and we did two things. We worked with fashion houses to do things around supply chain and track and trace of luxury goods and specific items that could leverage NFTs. But we were really excited about the digital art, and we invested in a company at the time called Data NYC, and then another one called Additional. So Data NYC was a really exciting project because it allowed artists to work and create art and co-create art together wherever they were in the world. And then there was a DAO that was, so people were already thinking about all these structures. There was a DAO that was going to redistribute some of the fees to the entire community of artists. So the project survived crypto winter because of the strength of the two founders who really believed in their project, and is still going on. And the other one, additional, pivoted and didn't continue sort of the marketplace. But we saw very early, the potential. And I think NFTs right now, we focus on collectibles and art, but it's so much more, as you guys all know. It's going to really revolutionize the way we interact on the social media front, on the community side, but also how we interact with real assets and financial instruments, which can also be represented by NFTs. And so I think, in the future, you're going to go to a concert, you're going to go to a conference, you'll come in with your NFT, and you'll be able to attest that you were there. So we'll see that, transform the way we live.
So Henry mentioned earlier that this element of community, and we've seen communities coalesce around specific blockchain projects. You just have to look at something like XRP Army or Link Army or something, or Link Marines, to understand that community plays a large role in this. So what's special about NFTs that allow communities to be formed, and also how does it galvanize people differently than saying, oh, you're just building around a layer one project or some sort of technical innovation that people can get behind and purchase some sort of asset to be bought into their success as well?
So what's really exciting about the NFT space is it's bringing in a whole different crowd of people that you didn't see necessarily in 2016, 2017, when it was just a bunch of us, people who really liked the tech or really liked, but now you see a lot of artists who are not technical. And then, so they're able to have a voice. And now you're seeing people of all different types of people, undiscovered, people from all around the world, so what was happening right now is we're seeing a lot of inclusion, a lot of women coming into the space who maybe have been intimidated by the tech of Ethereum or Bitcoin or all the other blockchain technologies. So I think that's what's really exciting is now you see a lot of women creating their special spaces and communities for that point. And so I think that's really important as far as we're heading. And what was your other question that you asked?
Just how does building a community around an NFT differ than that of a technical project or a layer one blockchain?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll let you go ahead.
So I think it's about what you're trying to create, and because it goes beyond the on-chain engagement, right? So if you're building a layer one, you're expecting other projects to build on your platform and create, community of developers which are excited about the tech. Here, if you're building an NFT community, you want people to be excited about the community and the NFT itself and the value that it drives or that it represents. And like you've said, it brings on additional people beyond the developer community. And so bringing together the developers and the non-developers is pretty exciting. I want to piggyback on what you said about women and other communities that are gathering around NFTs. So we were talking this morning about the prices of punks. And basically, women punks and black punks are the most undervalued punks in our society. So it's interesting to see who's the buyer, who's the creator of these NFTs, and how do we value them, and are we repeating the biases that we have, as a society in the real world, in the digital world. And I think that's something we just need to be conscious of and just pay attention to. There are some NFTs like World of Women who are getting traction, et cetera. But so the question is are we just, repeating our mistakes from the physical world, or do we want to create something different? And I think same thing for the concept of ownership. We see people buying land in the metaverse, making tons of money, and they know that they're going to be able to rent their land, create buildings, et cetera. But it's exactly the same thing. So what's the innovation here? Can we think about different types of ownership, different types of engagement? We've had streaming with music. Can we think about other models where people can benefit of usage, but not necessarily replicate what we have in the physical world. So just food for thought.
So both of you brought up a good point of bringing in other types of people that were not necessarily developers and not necessarily already participants in the crypto market. So can you talk a little bit more about who exactly are these market participants? Who are the ones that are purchasing this art? Who are the creators and the ones driving the supply side of things? And where is this demand coming from? And how does that differ from other cryptocurrencies? Like the demand for Bitcoin tends to be a lot of carnivores and like libertarians living somewhere. So how is this different?
So I don't know how many people here hang out in something called Twitter Spaces. It's somewhat like the new version of Clubhouse that Twitter is introducing. And what's really amazing is, first of all, everything Vanessa said is totally true, and I totally agree with her, first of all, regarding to be really cautious and aware of not continuing the trends that we've seen in tech and the biases, right? Because that is true, everything she said on how the women punks, which are actually more rare. The women punks actually are more rare, but they're the lowest in price, which is really interesting. And then also the darker colored punks, should I say, in a PC matter. What we're seeing right now is we're seeing people who are not technical, like we said, artists, and then through platforms such as like OpenSea, they're able to mint their artwork. And so they're able to bring in their communities of followers. See, there's a lot of artists who have Instagrams, they have a lot of followers, but they're not necessarily in tech. But they're able now, we're onboarding people into this ecosystem through NFTs, which is really exciting. That's what we wanted to do back in 2016, 17, right? How can we onboard? Remember when we were telling everybody about Bitcoin in 2016, 17? People said we're crazy. We're hearing the same things about NFTs now. People are saying we're crazy. You could just right click and save it. How many people have heard that, right? So it's a really monumental time, because when you have objections like that, when you have people that are resistant like that, what's gonna happen? This is the next big thing.
Okay. It's just like the right click and save thing really gets me. It's just like, man, people just don't understand collectibles in the first place if they're even to say that. And there's something fundamentally different about NFTs in terms of, oh, I own one of 21 million Bitcoin, or I own one of this one thing, and no one else is going to have the same one thing as me. There's something primal about that. No real point I wanted to get to that, but I don't know. It's just something different about it. Another question I had regarding the market structure is you're seeing a lot of activity around speculating and kind of robust secondary markets that from 2017, one of the main issues with purchasing these NFTs were they're highly illiquid. So you'd purchase it and you'd be locked up and you don't know when you're gonna get your 10,000 or whatever amount you paid for this NFT back because the market is so thin. So what has changed since then? And who are these people who are making a living out of flipping NFTs and being gunslingers and being the first to purchase them and propping up a lot of this market?
So I definitely believe there is market makers now. And I mean, Vanessa's, she used to run Consensus, so she's a lot more knowledgeable on this part. I'm not saying that's what they did, but so for example, if you go on OpenSea, if you have anybody who has NFTs, you probably see on OpenSea, you probably get these emails, these notifications for, oh, somebody gave me a low bid, they're providing liquidity, right? So there is bots out there, there is people out there who do this for a living, who they place low bids and then they're able to provide liquidity. Is it a bad thing? I don't necessarily think it is, because it provides liquidity for people who need it. And that was the problem we had in 2016, 17, when people launched tokens. They would always say, when is it going to get launched on an exchange, right? And of course, now with the DEXs, it changed the whole game. But luckily with ERC 721s, with NFTs, they're highly liquid, and granted, if the market wants to buy them.
Yeah, I think we're still in a phase where people are building the tools for trading. So things around price formation, data. There's going to be a need for more volumes and more NFTs coming to the space in order for us to have a real market where market makers can really do their jobs. So I think we're information, right? People are looking at floor prices. There's tools around that. We invested in OpShot, which is a prediction market and allows you to have estimates for NFTs. So I think we're going to see a lot of that in the next 2 years, provided we we're still in a bull market. In which case, I think if we're not, it could be an interesting time to test the assumptions that we have on how to trade the NFT and where the real value lies. So I think there's also other tools around lending NFTs, which are going to mature. We think, maybe Aave is going to come up with some tooling around NFTs and lending and other projects too. So it's a pretty exciting time to trade NFTs and have a thesis around that. There's a few hedge funds who, allocated a portion of their funds to just do trading. And also have developed tools and analytics around that. So there's these very sophisticated investors, there's the bots, there's the whales, there's a lot of different market players.
What about retail, though?
Well, the retail, that's I hope they don't get they don't get the end of the stick with this. So that's the main issue and concern, and I think the issue is that, things like the sale of the punk at 500 million might attract the attention of some regulators on what is going on with these markets, and hopefully we won't have that end of the situation.
So I'm seeing this phenomenon happening all the time where some unknown artist or some anon starts a new NFT project, and right now the fervor around NFTs is so high that people will ape into these smart contracts without even reviewing the contract and without even a guarantee that they're going to get anything out of it. So to me, that seems a lot like a bubble. And what would you say to take the counterpoint of that there is some sort of fundamental value here, and it's not just right now, we're not just in some sort of speculative mania like we were in 2017.
Absolutely. I think what's beautiful about this community, right, is that community governs itself. Right, because you may not have to notice the bubble, but when you go into, you may not have to go and study the smart contract, but the community often, they do it themselves, they audit themselves. We have developers who, they take a look at it. For example, I was on Twitter Spaces a few days ago. I'm not going to name the project because that's horrible if I name this project. And then some developer said, I'm sorry, I'm a developer, I just studied the smart contract, I see some flaws in here. Ethically and morally, I have to speak up about this in the Spaces. And the host, of course, muted him, but I think that was pretty much. So that's what the beauty of the community, right? The community will govern itself, and I believe. Is it a bubble? I don't think we can predict the market, but I definitely do think there is a lot of retail money who is. We'll see, right? Because it's really different versus like 2017 when there was the bubble. Because can we call it a bubble? What happened in 2017? Or the price when it went down? Because now we have a lot of institutional buyers, right? We have institutions that came in, which really changed the game.
Yeah, we have the retails, we have the whales, we have the bots, but we also have the big brands and IP and large companies who buy NFTs for their collection. And so it's going to be like art. It's going to be something that they have on their balance sheet. And they will want to also buy and hold these NFTs. So there's some stickiness there in terms of saying that this is not a bubble. I think there's such a long way to go. And it has changed so much since 2017 in terms of who is in the space, who brings added value to the NFT space, that even though there might be some correction alongside the price of cryptocurrencies like we've seen in May, the NFT market moved in the same direction as the markets. I don't think that we're seeing the bottom soon.
And one thing to add is to prevent, what do we need to do to prevent maybe a bubble there needs to be more liquidity, onboarding more individuals. Because right now, if you look at the ways people buy NFTs, MetaMask, it's still difficult for people who are it could be difficult for different generations and people that are non-technical. So when you guys go back to your computers, when you guys go back to your respective places to live, maybe think about building tools that are going to be easier for people to really onboard in. And here's another thing. So right now I'm launching a project called Goddess NFT, and the goal of the project is to bring more women and people of underrepresented communities into this space by education and mentorship. And we just built out a Discord. And we found that was another bottleneck there, because the Discord was people were having a lot of issues facing the token gate bot. And can we have something else better than Discord? Is that, I don't know, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I think, the projects that will win in the coming years are the ones that have the best UX, UI experience and the most inclusive experience and ease of use. And we've seen that with the Flow blockchain. We've seen that with, people are minting on Tezos, things like that. And so that easy onboarding with the wallets is going to be crucial. There's also this environmental factor that artists and the retail really care about. We've been working with a famous photographer, and he's like, I don't want to be on a chain that is not, that doesn't abide with sustainability principles. So it's something that people really care about, of course, beyond the gas price. So those factors, I think, if you're building solutions or building products, really think about that. Think about who's your audience and who you want to attract, and know that these things will go viral because there are 7 billion people in the world that can have access all over the world, and it's pretty exciting.
So, Henry, you've been talking a lot about trying to create these more inclusive communities, like with Goddess NFT, and also with better onboarding experiences. But are you ever concerned that this whole crypto space is replicating some of the old systems we've had in like Silicon Valley tech, where now that we have these centralized points of places like even layer ones like Solana or exchanges, do you ever have this concern that one day the crypto market becomes overlords with new names? Now we just have the crypto aristocracy that's ruling things rather than truly revolutionizing things like Vitalik and many other people have talked about in 2016 or earlier?
You make a really good point. But what's really different about the NFT space right now is with the artists coming in, there's a lot more emotion. I think there's a lot more love and a lot more positivity that's coming into this space. I really challenge you guys to go visit the Twitter spaces, because when you after I host a Twitter space, after I join a Twitter space, the love is so strong. You feel so, my mental state of mind. So what happens is this, is people who buy these NFTs, they like to redistribute the earnings to support other artists. So rather than just hodling all these, typically what we see in normal cryptocurrency, we hodl all these crypto. You don't hear the word hodl anymore, right? How many of you guys don't hear that word anymore? Because what's happening is artists, when they earn this cryptocurrency, when they earn the Ethereum, they redistribute it out to other people's projects, and they support and uplift other artists. That's the culture of artists, and that's what's beautiful.
So I think there's a lot of, obviously, new layer ones that are more centralized. And I think we really need to focus on decentralization. We really need to create solutions that are self-sustaining, that everyone can participate in, and not have, heavily subsidized, siloed, wall-gardened marketplaces. It's already hard enough between the marketplaces right now, just on Ethereum, to sell things, because you're buying one NFT on one marketplace, and if you sell it on the other one, you lose, for example, the royalties feature or the rights that you had. So we're really just at the beginning of this sort of open access, and just make sure you read the fine print when you buy NFTs on certain marketplaces.
So let's talk a little bit more about fine print, because there's a few interesting nuances about NFTs. So for example, when you purchase an NFT, what exactly are you buying? Are you purchasing the rights to that image that you have? Do you have the ability to then go print t-shirts and start a blog and commercialize this NFT? Or is it really just some more along the lines of buying some sort of print? What do you think are the actual underlying intellectual property rights that go with making this purchase? And how are consumers interpreting the ownership of these things?
I can add in there, Vanessa. She's very enthusiastic, and then she's going to add a lot of nuggets of wisdom. So whatever she says, make sure to take notes. It's good. I see her, the lady over there in the teal. She's taking great notes. So you could maybe get her notes if you didn't get the notes. I totally forgot the question. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm just so happy to be here with you guys. Honestly, that's at the end of the day, we're having fun. And you asked
intellectual property.
Oh, intellectual property. So every different projects have different. So, for example, some have commercial intellectual property rights. And actually, Vanessa's actually an attorney, so
So I guess I need to answer. So if you buy an NFT, let's say a photo of an NFT, you're not actually buying all the rights to the photo. And that's the issue, but I think no one cares. And that's pretty interesting, and I think we'll see an evolution of IP law based on that, because it's unmanageable. You can't prevent people from replicating your NFTs, putting it as an avatar or on your Twitter profile. So what does it mean to have an NFT? It means that you have the right to this unique piece, digital piece. You don't have the right to the physical print or the initial photo, but you have the right to use it, display it, share it, and probably in the future we'll see deals that you can make with brands, etc., based on your ownership of the NFTs. Now, that being said, in each marketplaces, you have the exact description of what you're buying. And so the issue with the royalties or any subsequent rights that you have on that NFTs remain a little bit unclear because of the technical challenges of keeping that feature when you resell the NFT or when you change it from marketplace or if you were able to have it in a bridge with another blockchain. So, remains to be seen. I haven't seen, litigation around this. I think everyone is pretty excited to display their NFTs. We could think about some fringe use cases where you have offensive materials in the NFTs that are sold, and what happens to the person that's represented in the NFT, right?
Or even copywritten material or trademarked material
Exactly.
in the NFT and then getting DCA'd. And we're in a situation where you're not supposed to be redistributing or commercially monetizing this NFT, but you don't own the rights to it, but it's going to exist out there on the blockchain.
Yeah.
And this creates some pretty interesting scenarios.
I think it's going to be interesting in the music space because the industry is so siloed and the producers are so powerful in this space, and they will go after people who infringe upon their rights. So thinking about that, I think there's a lot that can be done in the space for platforms that are totally open for new artists that come in that don't have to deal with the existing infrastructure.
Man, the time flew. It looks like we're just about at time here. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any other questions, please come afterwards, talk to Henry, Vanessa. They're both brilliant. I'm sure they'll be able to give you a good answer.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.